our next presenter, and that will be Stephanie Mead. Stephanie is here she's a senior retirement plan consultant here at Definiti, and she works daily with plan sponsors just like you to make sure the plan is running smoothly. She is here today because she's going to do something fun. She's going to talk to us about the 401k alert, kind of a true crime experience, and talk about whenever you have missing participants and maybe even some fraud that you need to watch out for. So, oh, look at you. I didn't even notice. You're all set.
That's right. I'm ready to go.
There you go. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I was just going to say that you just caught me coming back from another stakeout. This was the kind that you eat at, but, you know, it's still important investigative work. So I just kind of wanted to welcome everybody and just say hi and say that, you know, one of the things with 401k alert, our true crime, but on the 401k dime, is that we all hope that our retirement accounts will grow exponentially so that we can travel the world after we retire. Unfortunately, there are times when unsavory things happen in your plan. And so today we're going to take kind of a unique look at some of the crimes that can happen and how to handle those types of situations. For you super sleuths out there, I just wanted to let you know that I have placed hints within my presentation today of the name of a popular 80s television show that dealt with crime and corruption. So if you're able to figure out the name of the show, be sure to email me at stephanie.mead@definiti.com. Be sure not to put it in the comments or in the chat section so that other people can have fun trying to find it as well. So for our first episode, I have two cases for us to examine today. One is a missing person and the ways that you can find them, and the other has to do with embezzlement. Not something we want to talk about, but it does happen occasionally. So let's just jump right into our first case. Our first case is the case of Mama Marge. She retired early from her job with promises to return, but she was never seen again. So let's jump in and see if we can help find Marge. Margaret Lulu Smith was well liked at her job. She worked there about 11 years, and around the office, she was affectionately known as Mama Marge. The last time she was seen was at her retirement party. Now, at that retirement party, Mama Marge had hugged everyone, tears in her eyes, but she promised that she would be back after her small vacation to Las Vegas, something she'd been planning for years. She was going to come back and show everybody pictures and have lunch with them. She even told the new office manager, Holly, that she was going to come and pick up her retirement distribution paperwork. Because as she was telling everybody at the party, she was going to take her 401k balance and make some small upgrades to her home that she shared with her apricot-colored poodle, General Ginger. He was getting extra special doggy num-nums as well. The problem is, well, that was 3 years ago. Mama Marge never made it back for her lunch with coworkers or the distribution paperwork to pay out her balance. The new office manager, Holly, had mailed the distribution forms several times to the last known address, but they never returned. So Holly had heard some rumors around the office that Marge had met an elderly widow while they were in Las Vegas and fallen in love. It was rumored then that they got married in the Happy Hazard Wedding Chapel. After that, they walked into the first casino that they saw, hit a slot machine, and won over $750,000. It's a lot of money, which she then heard that they used to buy their dream home in a small town in Georgia, which was several states away, where they lived happily ever after. But did she? Let's take a look at what we know about Marge, see if we can help find her. We know that she was always conscientious and willing to help everyone. Mama Marge was well loved around the office. She was a bit reserved and quiet, but the 56-year-old always had a smile and a hug for everyone. She also liked to bake, but since it was just her and the general, which remember, that's the poodle, at her house, she would always just bring those homemade goodies to the office with her. Married to her high school sweetheart, Marge had lost her husband, James, to cancer about 7 years ago. And while that's tragic, it did allow her to retire early. Their only child an adult son named Lucas had joined the Army, where he was stationed in Alaska about 10 years ago. While he was there, he had met a native Alaskan woman named Doki, and they have 2 boys named Coy and Vance. Now, Mama Marge was a proud grandma, and although they only got to visit each other once or twice a year, Alaska's a long drive away, she always kept pictures on her desk next to pictures of the general who she adored and spoiled. And she often said she spoils the general because she can't spoil the grands. Well, it seemed Mama Marge was a bit of a homebody and loved to make treats. She was rarely out sick from work and enjoyed spending time with her younger coworkers and would often bake them personalized birthday cakes for their birthday. She had said that as soon as she returned from vacation, she was going to have contractors at her house so that she could start the updates on her kitchen. She was really excited to get the new stove with a double oven for all of her baking needs. That and her vacation were all she could talk about prior to her retiring. So what happened? Where's Marge and why hasn't she taken her distribution? Well, this happens a lot of times. You have someone in your plan who goes off, promises to come back, and unfortunately, for some reason, you just don't hear from them again. So we're going to try and help find Marge. So let's take a look at what we know. Now, first, as a plan sponsor, you might have an obligation to distribute those benefits, regardless of whether the terminated participant has completed and returned those distribution forms. And that's called a mandatory distribution. Even if your document doesn't have mandatory distribution provision, keeping your terminateds in the plan can be costly with monthly and annual fees. So while Marge has a little more than 4,000 in her account, which that is within the $5,000 threshold for a mandatory distribution that we'll talk about a little bit more, we can move her funds out without her signature. And also the fees your company is paying for each year for her account, and the fact that she's also included on the number of participants each year, which could put your plan closer to audit status, and your fiduciary to pay out your terminated participants means we need to locate her or declare her as lost and missing and get her funds out of the plan. So to help do this, the DOL issued a field assistance bulletin that they call a FAB, and this describes the minimum steps that you have to take before you can declare a participant as lost or missing. Once that happens, we can then roll their money out into an IRA set up for them in their name. Okay, so there's 5 steps, and we'll talk about each one right now. The first step is to use certified mail. So although Holly had already mailed the distribution paperwork, the first step is to resend that paperwork, but you include a letter with a response day of, say, like 30 or 45 days from the date of the letter. And the important part here is that you're going to send it via US mail, but certified return receipt. Sending it this way starts our deadline because we have an official stamp from the post office, and we'll also let you know if you have a current address. And you know this because if the little green card is returned, you get that little green card with a signature, you should hear back from your participant within a few days. They will either need to return the forms or contact you to keep the funds into the plan. If you receive the signed green card back, but you do not hear with them within your deadline, then they can be labeled as an unresponsive participant, and that allows you to proceed with the transfer of funds to an IRA. If you have participants that might fall in the unresponsive category, be sure to contact your RPC for paying those folks out of the plan. They're going to know what all you need to do to get that to happen. However, if you got the entire package back as undeliverable, then we have to start the hard detective work to find our missing person. So what's the next step? Well, on the FAB that they sent to us, this is actually listed as the 3rd step, but most employers I've worked with in the past have found more than an 80% rate of locating lost participants. So I'm going to move this to the front. So use your free search tools such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of the many different options you have. While Holly or yourself might not have been close with Mama Marge, being new, she did know enough to do a search. You can easily start searching for a participant by just typing their name in the search bar of the browser and see what pops up. Now, in this case, we know that Mama Marge, or we assume Mama Marge, was remarried. So she might have a new last name here, but a lot of times women will list their first name or their prior name before their new married name. So you'll want to be sure to check out for that. Also, we heard that she moved to Georgia. So a lot of times we know a state that we can narrow it down to. And even though her profile picture could be one of her family or General Ginger, we know what they look like because we saw the pictures on her desk. We also know that her son and family members, Doki, Coy, and Vance, who live in Alaska. So even if Marge didn't have a social media presence, maybe her family does. So you want to reach out through the messaging system, with whichever one that you find them, and let them know that you're trying to contact her to pay out her retirement funds. Most of the time, you'll get an answer pretty quick after this. While there's no real official method to documenting your search, I recommend you just keep a brief note stating whom you search for, what days you search for, and keep this in the employee's records in case you're ever audited. Like I said, just be sure you know what you search for and the date that you search for it. Okay, and if you still can't find them after that, the next step is to check plan-related and employer records. So if you haven't already done this, you're going to look back into your other employee benefits, like your health plan, and see if there's a more updated address. If there is, then you have to, again, send the certified return receipt distribution packet to them to this new address. If you don't find another address, just be sure to note down what day that you searched for it and make a note about any of your searches and what came up from that. All right, step 4. You're going to check with your designated plan beneficiaries. So unfortunately, we don't always get a beneficiary form, but I think most investment companies are doing a good job of adding that to their enrollment packets. So hopefully you'll have a beneficiary form somewhere. So one of the things that you're required to do is to look at those beneficiary forms and try to identify and contact any individual listed as a designated beneficiary. So for Marge, her only designated beneficiary was her son, Lucas. So if there's an address listed for him, then you're going to need to send the certified return receipt distribution packet out again, only to this time. If there's no address, you might want to try the free search methods that we talked about earlier. Again, a younger generation is probably going to be more active on social media. And the last thing is what they say, additional searches. Maybe. This is kind of important because what the IRS has said here is that it's on the prudence of the fiduciary, so the plan sponsor, considering the size of a participant's account versus the actual cost of a search, of what a search costs. So some of these could be, a commercial locator service, a credit reporting agency, informational brokers, investigation databases, things like that charge a fee. So for this step, I advise that you as a plan sponsor and a fiduciary determine a policy that you're going to apply across the board to all your participants that you're trying to find. You especially don't want to make a policy for one employee that you don't follow for others because that can be seen as discriminatory. So come up with an idea in advance. For example, your policy could be that if the balance is over $3,500, you'll pay for one search method that runs between $35 and $50, over $7,000, 2 searches are approximately, or that maybe you're going to spend 10% of the account balance to locate the participant. I think that if your plan allows, you can also charge these fees to your participant. You'll need to talk with your RPC about that. And also, this doesn't have to be a formal policy. So this is not something that you're going to have to amend your plan or anything like that. Just type out a little informal policy that you keep with your plan documents, that this is the policy that you use. Now, after all of those search methods, which Marge has $4,000, maybe you decide you want to go ahead and pay one fee. We're going to say here we decided not to. If after all of those search methods you're unable to find Marge, you can declare her as missing. By the way, just let me throw this in an important little fact here for you. A missing person does not need to be missing for 24 hours before reporting them. It's important to report them as soon as possible so the police have more time to locate that person. They want to find them before the 24 hours is up. So just remember that. That's a myth that's kind of hit around, and I just want to make sure that people know you do not have to wait 24 hours. Okay, so it turns out that Marge really did hit it big in Vegas, and after her whirlwind marriage and move, she just forgot about all the funds. So what now? Well, hopefully we have located and paid her out before we have to clear them missing. But if not, the IRS DOL says that you can now transfer those funds via an automatic rollover to an IRA if your participant is over your normal plan's retirement age, which is usually 65. It depends on your plan document for that, or age 62, whatever is later. However, if your participant's under the later age, and March was 56, has an account balance in excess of $5,000, you must have the participant's signature before processing any distributions. But, and this is what I like to tell all of my plan sponsors, it's always a good idea to keep track of your terminated individuals by sending them a distribution form. I recommend doing it once a year. Even if they happen to move and don't tell you or change their address on the financial platform, a lot of times you'll get an address update from the post office if it's within 6 months. And, they might just get tired of seeing your distribution forms come through and move the money on their own. Now for us, since Marge's account is less than $5,000, we are able to set up an IRA account for her and transfer her funds out of the plan through the mandatory distributions. However, someone at your company should always know where those funds are located in case Marge remembers and comes back and contacts your company for her money, years later. Thankfully, in this case, Marge and the General are alive and well in Georgia with her new husband and their beautiful new home. So that's all I got on Mama Marge, and we'll take questions on that at the end of this. But now I want to move into the quick case of J.D. Candyman Smith. Now, the Candyman, he'd been working at the office close to 17 years as the office accountant. He was in his mid-40s and just married off his baby girl, Daisy. She was the youngest of 4. And he was having a midlife crisis. So J.D. had, interestingly, gotten the name of Candyman because he would often drop by the office candy bowl and stuff a handful of mints in his pocket. We all know that type. Then throughout the day, he would randomly stop by someone's desk, leave a mint, and say, "Hope you're having a minty day." Weird, but harmless. So since he didn't talk much to others, most employees were unaware of his real name, Jefferson, and called him Candyman instead. Now, about 5 years ago, the Candyman and his wife went through a pretty nasty divorce. She hadn't worked previously, so she was granted alimony and child support for 3 of the 4 kids. Now, most of the employees were unaware, but noticed he had started mumbling about the cost of everything, and he stopped handing out as many mints. Interestingly enough, he would still stop by the candy bowl every morning and pick up a handful. Now, JD, or the Candyman, he rented a small apartment close to the office, and he started walking to work to save on costs. When coworkers would ask why he was walking, he would just say, "Well, she got everything and a little bit more." Then, all of a sudden, he announced that after his daughter's wedding, he was going to take a 3-week vacation to travel the country in a new, well, not a new to him, 1969 Dodge Charger, his dream car. He was so excited about the car. He had showed everyone pictures of it, told them about the sweet deal he got for this for 10 grand. And so everyone was really excited for him, even though it was a little bit strange. And they were glad that he was finally getting a car, especially one that meant so much to him. Now, when Matt Davenport, a part of the accounting team, heard about the trip, he told him, don't worry, he would cover anything that came up in accounting and to just enjoy himself. And so the Candyman set off on his midlife adventure with a smile on his face. Now, here's where it gets a little icky. While he was gone, Matt had needed to cut a paper check for one of the bosses. And while he was in there, he noticed a $10,000 discrepancy in the bookkeeping. Matt just thought it was an error, and he went to correct the problem, but ended up finding that the $10,000 discrepancy, which just happened to be the amount of the car he had just purchased, along with the other smaller discrepancy, had gone back for 5 years. By the time the Candyman made it back from his countrywide cruise, they found he had taken a total of $159,000 over the past 5 years. Discrepancies had started not long after his divorce and had continued throughout the years, with larger amounts taken at certain times that coincided with life events such as, a child getting married or a health issue. Of course, the bosses were heartbroken. He was a long-term employee, and they had trusted him. Unfortunately, in this case, they had no option but to fire him. But what about his retirement account? It has over $110,000. Can you take that to offset what he took? Do you even have to give it to him? Unfortunately, we do have to deal with this question occasionally in the TPA world. And this is not the best answer that I can give, or it's not my favorite answer, but it is the only answer. Under federal law, all assets in a retirement plan are considered unassignable. This means that creditors generally cannot make a claim to the assets or try to seize the assets. Now, federal law does allow some exemptions for family support and things like that. But in the end, no, you cannot withhold his funds if he requests the distribution. It could be possible to have a meeting with him to see if he would agree to paying the difference once he receives his distribution. However, there is no law that requires that. And so if he changed his mind afterwards, there's really nothing you could do about it. Again, these assets are unassignable, and only the participant has claim to them. In cases like these, I definitely feel for my employers. No one wants to be in a situation like this, and unfortunately, this is the only answer I can give you, which is that you have to pay him. Now, the good news on this is that he will probably have to sell the Charger to pay back his debt. But in this case, the Candyman was discovered and brought to justice for his crimes. Well, okay, folks, that's all for the first episode of the 401k Alert, True Crime on the 401k Dime. If you're interested in seeing more episodes, or, if you have a topic that you would like me to dig into, let me know in the comments section. And as always, if you have anything crazy that pops up in your 401k plan, remember, you are not alone. Call your RPC and we can solve this for you. And remember, if you were able to figure out the name of the show, be sure to email me at stephanie.mead@definiti.com.